Rain hammered the glass doors of St. Gabriel Medical Center just before 3 in the morning. The night shift had settled into that thin, sleepy quiet when even the vending machines sounded tired. Then the ambulance bay filled with white light. Trauma incoming, multiple GSWs, the charge nurse called. The doors slid open and cold air knifed into the ER. 2 paramedics pushed a gurney fast enough that the wheels squealed on the tile. A man lay on it, bare chest streaked with mud and blood of lines bouncing. Male, mid-30s, possible special operations, the lead medic said. Name Ward Ethan, 20-plus entry wounds, torso and neck. He coded in the rig, 9 minutes, no pulse. The portable monitor beside him sang a flat, unbroken note. An intern at the foot of the gurney froze, tray of instruments rattling in her hands. Move, someone snapped. Claire Adams stepped into the bay as the gurney slammed to a stop. She snapped clean gloves on in 3 quick tugs. She did not look at the intern. She did not ask permission. She took one look at the man on the table. The pattern of the wounds, the way his skin had gone that waxy gray instead of white. Time of arrest, she asked. 0249, the medic said. You are not getting this one back. Dr. Ben Collins pushed in behind her, tying his mask. On my count, 1, 2, 3. They slid Ethan to our bed. Hands reached in from every side. Compressors, tubes, bags. A nurse shouted vitals that did not exist. Flatline, the monitor sang. Call it, the respiratory therapist whispered. Collins looked at the clock. Not yet, Claire said. Her voice was level. The room heard it anyway. Adams, step back, Collins said. We are not working a corpse. He is not cold, Claire said. We still have a window. She moved to the head of the bed. Her palms settled on Ethan's sternum, not in the rhythm of textbook compressions. Her fingers slid between ribs in a small searching motion, like she was feeling for a switch. Bag him, Claire said. Slow, count with me. The intern obeyed. 1 squeeze, 2, 3. Claire angled 2 fingers just off the center of Ethan's chest. Not where civilian training placed them. Deeper. A fraction toward the left. Her thumb braced on his rib as if she had done this before. Adams, Collins warned. Give one of Epino push, she said. Hang it and drip. That is not protocol. Then do not sign it, Claire said. Hang it. The anesthesiologist hesitated. Collins did not. Do it. The drip started. The monitor stayed flat, the green line, a road running into fog. Claire closed her eyes for one breath. Heat rolled up from somewhere it did not belong. Beige canvas. Dust baking in the sun. Another man on another table, sand clinging to his lashes, someone yelling over rotor wash. Stay with me, Holt. The voice slid through her memory and was gone. She opened her eyes. Her fingers pressed in subtle pressure that sent a ripple through Ethan's chest wall. She counted the seconds in her head. 4, 6, 10. The green line twitched. Did you see that? The intern whispered. Another twitch, then a small spike, then another. Beep. Beep. Air rushed back into the room. Collins stared at the monitor, then at Claire's hand still on the man's chest. What did you just do? He asked. Bought us time, Claire said. Use it. The doors of Bay 3 swung open and a second gurney shot past. A tech shouted for help. Noise flooded back in. Claire peeled one glove, then snapped it back into place. I am with him, she said, nodding toward Ethan. Float the next trauma to 4. Collins hesitated, then nodded. Fine, you do not leave this bed. He swung out of the bay. Time flattened. Harsh light. Metal. The rhythm of feet on wet tile. When other rooms screamed loud enough, Claire stepped away from Bay. 3 worked until the line on a screen steadied, then came back to Ethan. Once, a resident called a code on a girl in a red hoodie. Claire shifted his hands on the sternum by 2 inches. The flat line trembled into a weak rhythm. Who trained you? He muttered. Online video, she said. By 5 a.m., Ethan's heartbeat had climbed from threadbare to fragile. The transfusions dripped into him. His skin held a faint hint of pink instead of gray. The vents sighed in time with the monitor. Claire stayed by his side. She checked his pupils. She checked the dressing over the bullet holes along his flank. Someone else had tried to patch him before a rough job with crooked sutures and singed edges. Her fingers brushed his shoulder and stopped. Under the smeared betadine and dried blood, 3 small burn scars formed a tight triangle near his clavicle. Old scars. Precise. She knew that pattern. Her stomach tightened. For an instant, the fluorescent light sharpened into desert glare. His pressure is holding, the anesthesiologist said behind her. Barely, but it is there. Keep the units going, Claire said. Do not chase the numbers. He gave her a quick look as if he wanted to ask how she knew when to stop and when to push. He did not ask. In the waiting room, the televisions had switched to the first local news. A red ticker crawled across the bottom of the screen. Sources say a Navy service member was brought in overnight after a targeted shooting downtown. Hospital staff who spoke off the record report that the man arrived without a heartbeat. Someone had filmed a fragment of the hallway on a phone. In the shaky video, a woman in blue scrubs leaned over a blood-slicked chest, both hands braced. Inside Bay 3, Claire had her back to the glass. She rested 2 fingers on the pulse at Ethan's wrist. Warm, thready, real. "Come on," she murmured. "Stay stubborn." Beep, beep. Rain pounded the windows as the night thinned at the edges and the heartbeat on the screen refused to quit. By 8 in the morning, the rain had thinned to a mist that smeared the city lights instead of drowning them. St. Gabriel looked softer from the outside glass front, hazy, the red emergency sign bleeding into the gray sky. Inside, the night felt used up. The monitors in Bay 3 kept their patient, and a soft, steady beep followed Ethan Ward through whatever dark water his mind was still moving under. Claire stood at the glass for a long moment, watching his chest rise under the blanket, then checked the drip again, even though she knew the rate by heart. Her shift technically ended at 7. "Go home, Adams," Dr. Collins said from the doorway. His voice was rough with too many hours awake. "If he arrests again, it is on me." She glanced at Ethan's face, at the bruising along his jaw. The triangle of burn scars near his shoulder seemed to glow under the antiseptic. "I will write my notes," she said. Collins grunted half protest, half surrender, and walked away. The charting room smelled like stale coffee and printer ink. Claire typed with her jaw clenched, the word swimming for a second, whenever her eyes brushed the field that asked for primary nurse. She filled it in anyway. When she came out to the main hall, the lobby was no longer empty. 2 people stood at the front desk, badges out. The woman had her dark hair pulled back in a severe knot, her suit pressed sharp enough to cut. The man beside her wore his tie-loosened coat open as if he had never quite adjusted to the idea of offices. The receptionist nodded in Claire's direction. "That is her." Both heads turned. The man was the first to approach. He walked without hurry, hands visible gaze taking in doorways, exits, cameras, as if built to map risk. "Ms. Adams," he said, "I am Agent Marcus Hale. This is Agent Sophia Rivera. We are with Federal Investigative Services, Health and Security." Everybody had long names this morning, Claire thought. She tugged at her scrub top, suddenly aware of the wrinkle at her shoulder. "I just finished a 12-hour shift," she said. "If this is about insurance forms, it can go to admin." "It is about—" "Last night," Rivera said. Her voice was cool, precise. "We need a few minutes of your time." The waiting area hummed with low conversation and the flicker of a muted television. A toddler cried somewhere near the vending machines. The smell of disinfectant wrapped around everything. Claire glanced at the double doors to the trauma bays. "I have patience." "Your board is clear," Marcus said. "We checked." He let the words hang a second, not quite in apology. The staff break room had a single small window and a couch that had seen too many exhausted bodies. Someone had taped a cartoon to the fridge about coffee being the real attending physician. Claire sat at the table instead. Marcus took the chair across from her. Rivera stayed standing, leaning lightly against the counter, arms folded. "We understand you were lead nurse on 9 trauma cases between 0200 and 0600 hours, Marcus said, "including a federal witness." "A patient," Claire said. Marcus opened a slim folder. "Let us start with Mr. Ward." His tone stayed neutral, but the way he said the name told her they already knew more than they were saying. "He arrived in cardiac arrest," Claire said. "Multiple gunshot wounds, massive blood loss. A systole on arrival. You initiated compressions." Rivera's gaze did not leave Claire's face. "Then you altered medication orders." Claire watched a condensation bead slide down the side of a forgotten soda can on the table. "The attending approved the orders," she said. "The attending says he followed your lead," Marcus replied. His words were, and I quote, "She saw something I did not." What was that? The room hummed with the overhead fluorescent light. Out in the hallway, a gurney wheel squeaked in a slow rhythm. "He was not cold," Claire said. "His pupils were reactive, his neck veins were flat. He had a chance." "That does not explain the technique you used," Rivera said. "The hand placement, the off-protocol drip, those are not civilian procedures." Claire felt a muscle jump in her cheek. She kept her voice even. "It is called trying something before you give up," she said. Marcus studied her for a long breath. His eyes were a soft brown that did not quite match the edge in his questions. "Where did you train Ms. Adams?" he asked. "Seattle Nursing College," she answered. "Graduated 2014, licensed RN trauma certified." Before that, there was the faintest echo of rotor blades in her ears, a memory trick with timing and noise. She pushed it away. "Does this have something to do with his case?" she said, "or with me?" "It is the same thing right now," Rivera said. Marcus looked over at his partner, then back at Claire. "We are trying to understand how a first-year ER nurse revived a man who had no pulse for 9 minutes and kept him alive. That is all." "That is not all," Claire thought. "Maybe he is stubborn," she said. "Some people are." Marcus's mouth twitched either at the answer or the way she avoided the question. He closed the folder. "For now, do not leave town without notifying hospital administration," he said. "We may need a follow-up." Was not planning a vacation, Claire said. Rivera pushed off the counter. We will speak with your colleagues, she said. Thank you for your time. They left with the same measured pace, Marcus holding the door for his partner, as if they were just polite visitors, not people who had just drawn chalk lines around her night. On her way out, Claire paused at bay 3. Ethan's chest rose slow but steady. The triangle of scar tissue at his shoulder peeked from beneath fresh gauze. Her hand itched to pull the blanket higher over him. She laced her fingers together instead and walked away. Outside, the chill hit her like a physical thing. The rain had turned to a fine drizzle that made the street lamps glow with halos. Her breath clouded as she stepped into the staff lot. Her car was small, older, the kind of sedan that did not draw attention. Inside, it smelled faintly of antiseptic wipes and mint gum. She sat for a moment with her hands on the steering wheel, letting the quiet press in. On the passenger seat, her phone buzzed. Messages from coworkers, a news alert about overnight violence downtown, a push notification from a fitness app she had never used. She killed the screen and started the car. Her apartment building crouched on a hill above the waterfront, all concrete and narrow balconies. The lobby smelled like damp carpet and someone's reheated dinner. Inside her unit, the silence was a different kind. No monitors, no beeping. Just the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional drip from a pipe inside the wall. Claire dropped her bag by the door. Her shoulders sagged as if they were no longer on display. The living room held a thrift store couch, a small table, a bookshelf with more medical texts than novels. The walls were bare. On the highest shelf, a neat triangle of folded flags sat next to a small wooden box. Her fingers were steady when she reached for it. The box opened with a familiar soft click. Inside lay a silver dog, tag edges worn smooth stamped Holt Daniel. Next to it, a wedding band with one side scorched and pitted. Beneath those folded tight, a strip of laminated map with 3 red circles fading toward pink. Heat crawled up behind her eyes. She stared at the dog tag until her reflection blurred in the metal. Hey, she said quietly, voice, catching the way it had not all night. I kept my promise. I stayed out. The words did not quite settle. She closed the box and slid it back into its place, then went to the tiny kitchen. Tap water, 2 swallows, metallic and cold. Her hands braced on the counter longer than necessary. Across town in an office with no windows, Marcus sat in front of a monitor that threw pale blue light on his face. Run that name again, he said. The analyst beside him tapped keys. Claire Adams, 32 RN, no criminal record. Clean financials, clean everything. It is like she did not exist before 2014. Check aliases, Marcus said. He watched the cursor blink while the system searched logged identities, licenses, federal indexes. Nothing new appeared. What about the prints from her employment file, he asked. Missing, the analyst said. It is marked as uploaded, but the image link is dead. Could be a clerical error. Marcus leaned back. The chair creaked softly. Right, he said more to himself than to the room. When the analyst had gone, he keyed in a different query. This one bypassed the standard interface, digging into a database with a warning banner at the top that most users never saw. Name Claire, last name Holt. The results took longer. Then a single file populated the screen. The header read, United States Navy below, that a rank and MOS code. HM2 Claire Holt, Fleet Marine, Force Status, killed in action, location Fallujah, date 2010. A black and white ID photo sat at the top right corner of the file. The woman in it wore a uniform instead of a scrub's, hair shorter, eyes somehow both harder and more alive. Same jaw, same scar along the neck, same stare that did not give much away. Marcus turned the monitor off and sat in the sudden dark. In ICU, Ethan Ward swam up from whatever sedative blur held him. The world came back as sound, first the steady chirp of the monitor, the soft whoosh of the ventilator, the distant rolling of wheels on tile. He opened his eyes. The ceiling above him was blank and white, a square of light humming. His throat burned. He tried to swallow and failed. A shape moved into view. Blue scrub's hair pulled back, face familiar in a way he could not place. Hey, the woman said. Do not try to talk. You have a tube. Her voice was low, steady, the kind of voice people used when everything around them was not. He blinked slowly. She checked his pupils, her thumb brushing his cheekbone, then adjusted something on the IV line. Her hands were sure, not just practiced, certain. He tapped his fingers weakly against the sheet. She looked down. You are in St. Gabriel, she said. Seattle. You took a lot of bullets, but you are still here. His breath hitched around the tube. He lifted a hand heavy as stone and caught her wrist. Her skin was warm. There were calluses along the base of her fingers, not from pens or keyboards. He held her there, staring at the letters on her badge until they resolved. Claire Adams RN. He did not have a voice yet, but his eyes asked anyway. I am the nurse, she said. That is it. His grip tightened just a fraction. He had seen hands like that patch men up, under red light and rotor wash working past noise and chaos no hospital could simulate. He had watched those hands lose people, and he had watched them snatch some back when there was no good reason left. His gaze flicked to the small pale line at the side of her neck. She followed it with a tired half-smile. "Get some rest," she said. "You are going to need it." She eased her wrist free and moved away to chart at the bedside computer. The monitor kept beeping steady like a reminder that a thin line once crossed had been walked back the other way. The clouds thickened again by late afternoon. Seattle pulled its gray coat back on, and the city lights flickered up early, smeared by low rain. Marcus Hale watched droplets creep down the office window like they were tracing routes on a map. Behind him, the computer screen glowed with the last thing he had looked up. HM2 Claire Holt killed in action. The label sat there neat and absolute. His phone buzzed. He picked it up. Hale. A dry voice came through, wrapped in static. "Heard you were poking around old files." "Good to hear from you too," Commander Marcus said. He turned from the window, dropped into his chair. "I sent a formal request." It bounced off 3 walls in a denial stamp. "I would try the informal route." "You always did like side doors," the voice said. "What do you need?" "Confirmation," Marcus said. "Navy corpsman attached to Fleet Marine Force. Claire Holt. Fallujah, 2010. What do you remember?" On the other end, silence stretched. Marcus could hear low computer hum the faint click of someone covering a mic. "Where did her name even come from?" the commander asked. "A hospital in my city," Marcus said. "On a badge that says Claire Adams." "That is not funny." "I am not in the mood for jokes," Marcus said. The commander exhaled. The sound was old and tired. "She was good," the man said. "Fast. Smart. Mean in the right ways. We pulled her into something off the books. Battlefield trial program. You do not have that clearance." "You are talking about Project Lifeline," Marcus said. The word dropped between them like a weight. No one had typed it on the screen, but he had seen hints in eyes and redacted lines for years. On the line, a chair scraped. "Who told you that name?" "Someone who bled for it," Marcus said. "Then you know enough to leave it alone." "That is not how my job works." "That program was shut down," the commander said. His tone sharpened. "Shelved. Packed. Whatever word makes you feel better, it is not your concern. A woman we buried as dead showed up in my ER and pulled a federal witness back from the edge when every civilian protocol said, 'Quit,' Marcus said. That presses it into my concern." Static, breathing, the faint ring of metal on ceramic. "You did not hear this from me," the commander said at last. Lifeline taught medics to hold people on the line a little longer. Long enough to fly them out. Long enough to ask questions. We paid for it in pieces of them. Some broke, some drank, some disappeared. Holt disappeared in a blast we did not expect anyone out of. "She did not," Marcus said. "Then I guess you have a ghost," the commander said, and cut the call. The office was quiet with the phone back on the desk. Marcus stared at it for a few breaths, then reached for his coat. Outside St. Gabriel, Claire stepped into the fugitive light of early evening. She had managed 3 hours of sleep and a shower. They had taken the edge off, but not the pull behind her eyes. The sidewalk gleamed wet. Cars hissed past in slow sheets of spray. She zipped her jacket higher around her neck and started down the block toward the bus stop. Walking gave her a few extra minutes with air that did not taste like antiseptic and oxygen. Across the street, a dark sedan idled at the corner with no turn signal. Its headlights washed the crosswalk white. She felt the hairs along her arms lift. A man in a hooded jacket stepped out of the coffee shop behind her and nearly bumped into her shoulder. "Sorry," he mumbled. She stepped aside. His coffee smelled burnt and sweet. He kept going without looking back. Her heartbeat steadied. Not everything that lurked was hunting. At home, the hallway light on her floor flickered, buzzing. Someone had left a pizza box by the trash chute. The carpet squelched a little under her shoes. She locked the apartment door behind her and leaned her forehead against the wood just for a moment. The weight of the day pulled through her bones. She peeled off her jacket and caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror by the bathroom. Damp hair, circles under her eyes, the small, pale scar along her neck that the hospital neckline never quite hid. For a second, the mirror did not show the apartment. It showed a metal sink canvas walls, a cot with a duffel dumped on it in a place that smelled of sand and diesel. She blinked and it was gone. In the kitchen, she boiled water that did not need boiling. Her hands moved by habit. Mug, tea bag. The steam climbed and blurred the edges of the room. Her mind did not stay blurred. Project Lifeline had never been called that out loud where she could hear. It had been the new protocol in the trial kit and what the brass wants. It had been extra ampules in her pack, extra injections on her cheat sheet, a different way of looking at time. 10 minutes between now and death, 10 minutes to squeeze dry. Her chest tightened. The kettle whistled. She took it off the burner. In the living room, she did not turn on the main light. The city glow drifted in through the window, painting the walls faint orange and blue. She sat on the arm of the couch and wrapped both hands around the mug. They had shaken when Daniel died. That was the last time she remembered them doing that. The blast had picked them both up and thrown them into the same air. She remembered gripping his vest, dust in her teeth, his mouth shaping words over the ringing in her ears. Get out, stay out, promise. She had nodded because saying anything else in that moment was impossible. The mug burned her palms. She held on anyway. Across town, Marcus's sedan rolled past her building once, twice. On the third pass, he parked half a block away and sat with the engine off. Rivera looked over from the passenger seat. You could have just knocked on her door at the hospital, she said. I wanted to talk off camera, Marcus said, without badges in the way. You sure she's not just someone who got lucky on a bad night? Rivera asked. He thought of the missing fingerprints, the dead link in the database, the KIA stamped in black. No, he said. I'm not sure of that at all. They watched the building doors for a while. People came and went. No one matching Claire's profile left. The plate on that black SUV at the end of the block is registered to a shell company in Virginia, Rivera said. She had the small tablet on her knee, its screen dimmed low. Friend of yours, Marcus asked. Not my side of the street, she said. Could be anyone's. He frowned. The SUV sat too neat in a line of older cars' paint, too clean for the neighborhood. The driver never got out, never checked his phone, never lifted a coffee cup. He checked his watch. We are early, he said. Let us not spook her. They pulled away. As the headlights faded, the SUV stayed where it was. In St. Gabriel, Ethan drifted in and out of sleep. Each time he surfaced, there were new fragments. Bright light. A hand over his sternum. A female voice cursing softly when a clamp slipped. The sting of air coming back into lungs that did not want the job. He woke to a nurse changing the bag on his IV, not the one with the steady voice. Her name is Claire, the nurse said when he managed to croak a question around the soreness in his throat. The tube was gone now, leaving his airway raw. She's off shift. She is the one who kept you. The nurse added almost as an afterthought, everyone is saying it. Ethan lay back and stared at the ceiling again. He had been shot before. Not like this, not this many times, but enough to have heard doctors go quiet around gurneys. Enough to know the difference between a lost cause and a gamble. Whoever Claire Adams was, she gambled like somebody who understood that line very well. Night came down in earnest, folding the city into its damp hold. Claire pulled on her jacket again and stepped out onto the balcony for air. The drizzle mist beaded on her skin. Somewhere below, a car engine idled, then cut. Voices drifted up in pieces too far away to make sense. The view from her balcony looked over the arterial road that cut through the hill. Cars moved like veins of light, red and white pulsing. It reminded her of the overpass near the hospital, the way the traffic slid under it like water. A thought formed before she could shove it away. If someone was going to decide what to do about her, she did not want it happening in halls she used to save people. She set her mug in the sink, grabbed her keys, and headed out. The overpass was 3 blocks from her place, concrete slick with rain railings, cold under her hands when she rested them there. The roar of cars below filled her ears, a steady rushing, almost like surf. She watched taillights smear into each other, let the noise wash out the tracer flash of old gunfire in her head. Footsteps clicked on the wet pavement behind her. She turned. Marcus Hale stood under the nearest street lamp, hands at his sides, coat unbuttoned, hair damp. You picked a strange place for fresh air, he said. You followed me, she replied. Not very well, apparently, he said. You saw the SUV? She lifted one shoulder. You parked behind it. He walked closer, stopping a few steps away. The lamp painted a circle of light around them, the rest of the bridge melting into shadow. I checked your file, he said. The military one, the one that says you died 15 years ago. Then you know everything you need, Claire said. I know they put KIA on people they lose in pieces, he said. Sometimes it is cleaner than writing what really happened. She looked back at the road. A truck rolled under them, headlights sweeping up the underside of the bridge. What really happened, she said, is that my husband carried me out of a blast. He died. I did not. He asked me for one thing. To stay out, Marcus said. She nodded once. How is that working for you? He asked. Her laugh came out thin, surprised. I tried, she said. New name, new state. No weapons, just needles. I thought if I kept my head down, the part of the world that knows my other name would forget. And then a man full of bullets landed on your table, Marcus said quietly. She did not answer. He watched her hands on the railing. The knuckles were pale with tension. Those scars on his shoulder, he said. Triangle pattern. You recognize them. She did not look at him. We are done here, Agent Hale. We are not, he said. There is a program that used people like you until they broke. It is not as dead as your file says. Whoever was in that SUV knows your other name. You can pretend this is just about one lucky save, or you can tell me what they trained you to do so I can try to keep you breathing a little longer. The drizzle thickened small drops turning to rain that tapped on the rail like fingers. Claire let out a slow breath. The traffic below roared on relentless. You do not keep people breathing, she said. You write reports about how they stopped. You are not the only one who got tired of that, he said. For a moment, the noise of the city seemed to thin. The lights softened. The air smelled of wet metal and exhaust. Her hands left the rail. If I talk, she said, your job is going to get heavier. It already is, Marcus said. She looked at him, then really looked, searching for something that did not fit on a badge. The rain traced cold lines down her throat, past the scar the mirror could not erase. Fine, she said. You want to know what they built with Lifeline? You better start with why they branded his shoulder. The mark is not decoration, Claire said. Rain tapped on the metal railing between them. Cars hissed by under the bridge, their headlights smearing along wet concrete. They used it for assets they wanted to keep, she went on. People they ran through the protocol and did not want to misplace. The triangle meant you had survived Lifeline once and you were worth putting back together again. Marcus watched her face. Worth to who? The people who paid for the program, she said. Not to the ones doing the patching. He remembered the triangle of pale burns on Ethan's shoulder. So Ward has seen this before. He is not just a bystander who caught bullets at the wrong bar, Claire said. If he has that mark, then someone has already decided he is more useful alive than dead. At least for a while. Officially, he is a protected witness in a weapons trafficking case, Marcus said. We relocated him here 2 weeks ago. Claire let out a short breath that could have been a laugh if it had any humor in it. Then whoever tried to erase him did not clear it with your people first, she said. They cleared it with mine. Lightning flickered somewhere inside the clouds too far for thunder to reach the bridge yet. Marcus shifted his weight on the slick pavement. We can put you in protective custody, he said. Move you out of the city off-grid. Hide you properly this time. They found him in a secure apartment with your people watching, she said. You think a motel with a fake name is going to slow them down. It is better than you walking home alone. She shook her head. I am not the one they want gone. I am the loose end they did not expect. They came because I surfaced. They will keep coming until they are sure I do not exist. That is what custody is for, Marcus said. I have been kept before, she said. In tents and bases and rooms with no windows, I am not interested. The rain thickened, small drops turning heavier, colder. What are you interested in, Claire? He asked. Choosing the ground, she said. If they are going to try again, it will not be in my ER. It will not be in a hallway where I am trying to keep a child alive. He thought of the crowded trauma bays, the thin walls, all the places bullets could go that they were not meant to. You cannot fight them on your own, he said. I do not want to fight them, she replied. I want to contain them. She pushed away from the rail. You wanted to know what they built with Lifeline, she said. You will see it if you follow the bodies. Just make sure one of them is not mine. She walked past him, heading back toward the stairwell. He watched her go, the dark curve of her hair damp against her collar. The rain swept across the bridge and washed her footsteps from the concrete. Down on the street, the black SUV sat at the curb with no headlights. Inside, 2 men in plain jackets watched the overpass through a veil of water. She met with him, the driver said. His hands rested easy on the wheel, but his eyes never left the bridge. That is Hale. The Fed is a problem only if he keeps her alive, the passenger replied. Our orders have not changed. Remove the medic, secure any data, leave the witness to internal channels. What about collateral? The driver asked. The passenger reached into his jacket and tapped a folded sheet of paper. The sound was dry and final. Contract says we contain, he said. Do not make a mess unless someone else starts it. Claire stopped by the hospital before she went home. The night shift had turned over to the swing shift. New faces, new tired eyes, a different set of footsteps on the tile. She swiped back in the badge reader, blinking green. No one questioned it. Nurses came back all the time on their off hours to check labs to chase one last loose end. In ICU, the lights were low. Machines glowed softly, small constellations around each bed. Ethan's eyes were closed when she stepped into his room. His chest rose and fell under the blanket. The monitor traced his heart's stubborn rhythm. She stood by the rail for a minute, listening. The sound of his heartbeat through the speakers was not so different from the sound it had made under her fingers. Ward, she said quietly. His lashes twitched. He opened his eyes. Breathing without the tube was easier now, but talking still scratched his throat. He swallowed and stared at her as if focusing took effort. Could not leave without saying hi, he rasped. You were asleep, she said. Came back, he said, again. She tilted the rail down a notch and stepped closer. I need you to hear something, she said. He studied her face, then nodded once. Those scars on your shoulder, she said. Do you remember how you got them? His gaze drifted for a moment. The fluorescent light caught the green in his eyes and made it look washed out. "Clinic," he said. "Downrange. Not ours. They stitched me and branded me all at once, told me it meant I was one of the resilient ones. That is one word for it," she said. "You know what it really meant?" he asked. "It meant they had put you through a set of interventions they did not want confused with anything else," she said. "It meant you belonged to a list." He gave a rough half smile. "I stopped belonging to things a long time ago." "You belong to this case now," she said. "That makes you a target." "I already got shot 20 times, he said. "What are they going to do? Send a strongly worded letter?" "The ones who missed last night will not miss again," she said. "And they are going to come through people who do not wear uniforms. People who look like me." His eyes sharpened a little. "You saying you are with them or against them?" "I am saying I used to work off the same ledger," she said. "Then I walked. They wrote me off as dead. You turned up with that mark in my ER, and now that lie is broken." He let that sit heavy between them. "What do you need from me?" he asked. "You know things you have not told the agents yet," she said. "Names, locations, maybe a list they think you forgot." His jaw flexed. "They killed 3 of my team in front of me," he said. "They thought that would make me talk. It did not." "I am not asking you to talk to them," she said. "I am asking you to walk out of here when you are cleared and hand something to Marcus Hale. Something that proves this is not one rogue hit team and a lucky nurse." Something like what he said. "I will get it ready," she said. "You just have to keep breathing long enough to carry it down a hallway." He watched her in silence. "You think they will come here?" he asked. "If I were them, I would not risk hospital cameras twice," she said. "I would wait until you stepped outside." His fingers curled around the edge of the blanket. "I am not hiding," he said. "You do not need to," she replied. "You just need to be alive at the end. Let someone else stand in the doorway this time." She left before he could answer. At her apartment, she moved without turning on more lights than she needed. The city glow gave her enough. In the kitchen, she knelt by the cabinet under the sink and pulled out the white plastic first aid kit that had come with the place. It rattled in a way a normal kit would not. Inside, beneath rolls of gauze and a pair of cheap scissors, lay another layer of supplies. Ampules in unmarked glass, syringes in vacuum-sealed plastic, a cloth patch with a unit insignia that did not belong to any public list, a small scuffed flash drive wrapped in electrical tape. She peeled the tape, revealing metal scored with old teeth marks where someone had once bitten down on it in a hurry. Her thumb rested on the drive for a second, like it might burn. The files on it were not the full archive. She had not walked out with that much. Only copies of what she could carry in her pocket. Procurement logs, email threads, a set of initials she had spent years trying not to remember. She closed the kit and set it on the counter. Outside, an engine turned over, a door shut. Heavy footsteps in the hall, deliberately quiet. She picked up the kit and her keys. On the street, the back doors of the black SUV stood open. 2 men from the front climbed out hoods up against the rain, moving with the fluid economy of people who had trained with live rounds. One carried a duffel that sagged in the middle with the weight of the metal. The other adjusted a small earpiece and glanced up at the apartment windows. "3rd floor end unit," he said. "Heat signatures are light. She's probably alone." "You take the stairs," the first man said. "I will cover the fire escape." Claire rounded the corner of the building half a block away and watched them go in. The first aid kit weighed more than it should under her arm. She exhaled once slow. Then she turned and walked in the opposite direction toward the industrial strip that lined the river, where old warehouses slumped against each other with broken windows and faded signs. She did not look back. The warehouse she chose had once stored medical supply donations. Years ago, before budget cuts and new contracts, she had unloaded pallets there as a volunteer, stacking boxes of gloves and saline. The layout stayed in her memory the way routes through old bases did. She keyed in the door code she had watched a supervisor punch in one winter. The light turned green, surprising her only a little. No one had bothered to reset it. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of dust and ammonia. Rows of metal shelving loomed in the dim light, some still holding boxes gone soft at the edges. She walked the aisles, checking lines of site entry points, choke points. Her fingers trailed along the shelves, measuring distance. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. A single text from an unknown number. "Where?" She typed back South Dock, old supply hub. "If you want what I have, send your own, not cops." She hit send before she could edit the words. Then she powered the phone down and set it carefully on a crate by the door next to the first aid kit and the flash drive. "Now you choose," she said into the empty space. "Me or the evidence." The rain drummed on the roof in uneven patterns. Somewhere a loose panel rattled. 10 minutes later, headlights swept across the high windows. An engine cut. Doors opened. Footsteps on concrete, more than 2 this time. Claire took her position halfway down an aisle behind a stack of forgotten infusion pumps. Her hands checked the contents of the first aid kit once more. Gauze, tape, 2 ampules she hoped she would not need. She heard the click of a safety being tested, the low murmur of someone giving hand signals instead of wasting breath. Target phone is here, a voice called softly. Signal is dead. She is close. Another voice quieter. Lock the exits. We do not leave a trail. Claire inhaled and tasted dust and metal. She had chosen the ground. Now she waited to see who else would stand on it. The light from the parking lot cut thin stripes across the warehouse floor, pale bands between tall shadows. Claire listened. Footsteps spread out, careful, deliberate. One set moved along the left wall, another down the center aisle. A third lingered by the door, the soft creak of leather as someone shifted their weight. 2 interior, 1 on the entrance, she thought. At least 3, maybe more. Her pulse stayed steady. The warehouse smelled of damp cardboard and old plastic with a faint, sharp tang from cleaning agents that had dried on concrete years ago. A flashlight beam swept past the end of her row, white circle drifting over shrink-wrapped pallets. Row 3 clear, a voice murmured. She loosened the cap on one of the ampules in her kit fingers, moving by touch. Not the stronger stuff. Just enough to make someone sleep if they took it in the bloodstream. It had been meant for patient transports. It would not care. She slid along the shelves, keeping low, counting the aisles in her head. When she reached the gap that led toward the loading dock, she stopped and waited. A figure turned the corner, backlit from the entrance. Broad shoulders, hood up, weapon low but ready. His eyes scanned the space ahead the way a man looks in places where walls can hide more than equipment. He took another step, then another. When he passed her aisle, she moved. Her hand closed around his wrist, twisting the gun away from her body as she drove her shoulder into his ribs. The impact knocked him sideways into the metal shelving. Boxes rattled. Something small and plastic clattered to the floor. He grunted, tried to bring the weapon up. She shoved his forearm against the shelf, the gun pointing harmlessly at the ceiling. "Corsman Holt," he said between his teeth. "They said you were good. They did not say you were stupid." He drove his knee toward her thigh. Pain shot up her leg. She bit down on it and let his momentum turn them, spinning him into the aisle so his back hit the shelves again. Her free hand jabbed the needle into the side of his neck. The plunger depressed with a practiced push. He cursed, tried to slam his head forward. It connected with her cheekbone. Stars burst in her vision. She staggered back, one hand flying to her face. He lifted the gun. Then his knees buckled. He dropped in stages like a building collapsing in slow motion. The weapon hit the concrete and skidded away. Unit 2, report someone called from deeper in the warehouse. Claire picked up the gun. Her fingers settled into the unfamiliar grip. It felt heavier than the rifles she remembered. She did not answer. She checked the man's pulse. Slow, shallow breathing still present. His pupils reacted. He would wake up with a headache and a story if he woke up at all. She dragged him behind a stack of boxes and listened again. Silence thickened. The other footsteps stopped. Eyes up, a new voice said. Older, cooler. She has training. Do not assume she wants to win. She wants time. Claire frowned. She recognized the cadence. That flat, instructive tone. She had heard it before over a field radio breaking down casualty counts like grocery lists. Captain Nash, she whispered. The name tasted like metal. She moved back toward the center of the warehouse, keeping the shelving between her and the main aisle. Her breath fogged in the colder pockets of air. On the other side of the metal, 2 men moved in parallel, almost silent. The taller one paused at each intersection, gun leading. The shorter one kept his head high, hunting above eye level, tracing rafters and catwalks. Phone and kit are here, the taller man said after a moment. She left them. That is bait, Nash replied. She wants us looking down. Claire glanced up. The ceiling loomed dark and far. No help there. She marked their positions. 4 rows between them. 3, 2. The taller man reached the gap where her aisle met his. He stepped forward, muzzle sweeping left, then right. She yanked a box from the shelf and threw it. It crashed into the far side of the aisle, exploding in a rain of plastic tubing. The man spun toward the noise. Claire stepped out behind him. She caught his wrist with one hand and shoved his elbow with the other, turning the gun away as he fired. The shot blasted into the shelf, sending a spray of cardboard and dust into the air. The flash lit Nash's face at the end of the aisle. His eyes met hers, calm and assessing. Holt, he said. I figured the ghost would come home eventually. The recoil twisted the gun from the operative's hand. It fell clattering. Claire swept his legs. He went down hard, the air leaving him in a grunt. She kicked the gun under the shelving and stepped back into cover as Nash's first shot splintered the metal edge where her head had been. Rounds punched through cardboard and plastic, bursting bags of saline. Fluid streamed down the shelves, dripping onto the floor, turning dust into slick mud. She counted the shots without thinking. 3, 4, pause, 5, 6. He was not spraying wildly. He was pinning her. You know how this ends, Nash called. His voice echoed off the concrete. They stop writing your checks when you stop doing the job. That is all this is. She wiped blood from her cheek. The sting where the operative's head had connected throbbed in time with her heartbeat. You taught me that, she said, right before you asked me to keep someone alive so your people could question him while his lungs filled. He was an enemy combatant, Nash said. He was a kid, she replied. Another shot punched a hole in the shelf near her shoulder. Metal rang. You walked away from a signed contract, he said. They were generous. They let you disappear. You brought yourself back. That is on you. You brought me back, she said. When you burned your logo into a soldier, you were supposed to stabilize and not own. Silence then, no answer. From outside, a faint siren thread seeped into the warehouse. Not close yet. Somewhere in the city moving. Claire slid farther down the aisle, boots slipping for a moment in the spilled saline. Her hand brushed the cold round shape of a portable oxygen tank half hidden behind a pallet. Memories clicked. She pulled it out, set it upright, and turned the valve, listening to the hiss of gas. Across the aisle, Nash moved as well. She saw the shadow of his boots, the way he shifted weight as he advanced. Last chance, he said. Come out with your hands empty and you might get a quiet end. They are not in the mood for show trials anymore. She took 2 defibrillator pads from the side of an old monitor, stripped the plastic, and slapped one onto the tank. The adhesive clung even after years in storage. The second pad she held in her hand cord, trailing back to the machine. There was still power. The display woke with a faint beep when she thumbed the switch. Funny thing about your program, she said loud enough to carry. It never taught us what to do when the targets shot back. I read your psych evals, Nash said. You were not supposed to. Claire stepped out, keeping the oxygen tank between them. Nash was 20 yards away, gun raised. Sight locked on her chest. Rain boomed louder on the roof as if the storm had shifted. Drop it, he said. She held up the second pad instead. You shoot, she said, and this whole aisle goes up. His eyes flicked to the tank, the core of the old machine. Calculating. It is not a movie, Holt, he said. It is not that simple. Neither were your rules, she said. Yet here we are. A figure moved in the corner of her vision to her left, lower, appearing from another aisle. One of the contractors she had not accounted for raised his weapon, aiming not at her, but at the machine. Her thumb punched the shock button. The defibrillator screamed its warning tone. Electricity surged down the lines into the tank just as the first bullet hit the metal casing. The blast knocked the world sideways. Light slammed into her eyes, heat into her skin. The sound punched the air out of her chest. She flew backward, hit the concrete, and skidded into the base of a shelf. Boxes toppled around her, raining down in a heavy cascade. For a long moment there was nothing. No sound, no light, just weight and pressure and the taste of copper. Then noise seeped back, cracking wood, a low groan from somewhere in the rubble, the distant shriek of sirens closer now. She pushed at the mess pinning her legs. Her head rang, her vision doubled, then steadied. The aisle where the tank had been was charred and smoking. One of the shelving units had collapsed, twisted metal and scorched cardboard piled at a mad angle. A body lay half-buried, boots visible unmoving. Nash was gone. Air bit at her lungs, cold against burned skin. She tasted soot. She crawled toward the front of the warehouse, dragging herself past a fallen pallet, past the dark shape of the man she had sedated earlier, now covered in dust. Near the door, the first aid kit lay on its side. The flash drive had slid out, caught in a crack between 2 concrete slabs. She reached for it and fumbled, fingers clumsy. She managed to wrap her hand around the small metal piece. Headlights flared against the high windows. Red and blue flashed in the smoke. Brakes squealed. Federal, a voice shouted. Hands where we can see them. She realized she had no idea whether the words were aimed at her or someone else. Bootsteps pounded in. Men in tactical vests swept their weapons' eyes, cutting through the haze. One of them stopped when he saw her half buried near the wall, soot streaking her face, blood drying along her hairline. Contact, he called. We have one alive. His hands were gentler than she expected when he pulled the boxes off her legs. Marcus leaned into view behind him, mouth a tight line, eyes scanning for threats even as they locked on her. You have bad timing, she said. Her voice came out rough, amused against her better judgment. Story of my life, he replied. He crouched beside her. The flash of a paramedic's light bounced off the drive in her fist. What is that? He asked. She opened her hand. The metal sat in her palm, blackened at one corner, still intact. Files, she said. Pieces. Not enough to stop them, but enough to start something. A medic pressed gauze to the side of her head. Someone else checked her pupils. Marcus took the drive carefully, like it might shatter. You should have called me, he said. I did, she said. You are just not the only one who listens. His jaw tightened. He glanced at the smoking aisle at the body under twisted metal. Is he here? He asked. Nash. Not under that pile, she said. He ran when it stopped being clean. The medic slipped an oxygen mask over her nose and mouth. Plastic fogged with each breath. She needs a scanner, the medic said. Get her to the rig. Claire grabbed Marcus's sleeve. They will say I blew up a warehouse to hide something, she said. They will say whatever they need to keep this buried. What do you say? He asked. I say you have what you came for, she said. Use it. Her grip loosened. The medics lifted her onto a stretcher. The ceiling rolled past above her, a blur of steel and smoke stains. Sirens howled closer, then swallowed everything. Later, when the fire crews had doused the last hot spots and the bodies had been zipped into bags, Marcus stood at the back of his vehicle with the flash drive sitting on a clean evidence bag. Rivera joined him, hair damp from the mist outside, lines of fatigue etched around her mouth. Scene is contained, she said. 2 dead, both with contractor IDs that trace to a holding company in Virginia with no actual employees. No sign of your Captain Nash. He was here, Marcus said. She would not invent him. Rivera looked at the drive. You really think that little thing has ghosts on it? Not ghosts, he said. Paper trails. He closed his hand around the bag. We are going to need a bigger room, he said. The hospital ceiling above Claire was a softer white than the warehouse roof had been. She woke to its hum and the low beeping of monitors. For a second, the smell of smoke clung to the back of her throat. Then antiseptic and warmed blankets pushed it away. Welcome back, a familiar voice said. She turned her head carefully. Marcus sat in the visitor chair by her bed jacket, off shirt sleeves rolled, his badge clipped to his belt instead of his lapel. He looked like he had not slept much. How many times are you going to open with that line, she asked. Her voice was thin but there. Depends on how many times you try to get yourself killed in city limits, he said. Her head ached in a slow, deep way. The bandage near her temple pulled when she frowned. Any permanent damage, she asked. The scans look clean, he said. They want to keep you overnight for observation. That is the official line. And the unofficial one, she said. He nodded toward the plastic bracelet on her wrist. Technically, you are a material witness now, he said. We moved fast with that drive. It woke people up. She remembered the feel of it in her palm, the small weight through smoke. Who did it, Wake, she asked. Oversight committee, he said. Internal affairs. Some lawyers who bill by the minute. They want to hear from the person who collected their embarrassment into a neat file. Of course they do, she said. He watched her study the IV line taped to her hand. I can tell them you're not fit to testify yet, he said. Buy time. She shook her head, then regretted it when the room tilted. No, she said. Time is what they use. The longer they have, the more they bury. He leaned forward, forearms resting on his knees. Claire, he said quietly, you know if you speak in that room, you do not go back to what you were. There is no more hiding inside an alias. She thought of the folded flag on her shelf, the empty space where Daniel's ring had once rested, the way her badge had felt pinned over a name that was only half true. She looked at the monitor by her bed, at the green line that climbed and fell in a stubborn rhythm. I stopped being what I was a long time ago, she said. This just makes it official. The hearing room was smaller than she had imagined. No grand stage, no cameras. Just a long table, a row of chairs, a microphone that made every breath sound too loud, and faces that had spent years learning how not to give anything away. She sat facing them with a pitcher of water at her elbow and a court reporter at a low machine to her right. Marcus and Rivera took seats behind her, slightly to the side, close enough that she could feel their presence without turning. The chair at the center of the panel adjusted his glasses. For the record, state your name, he said. She looked at the small red light on the microphone, then at the paper tent in front of her where someone had typed Claire Adams in neat capital letters. Claire Holt, she said. Formerly Petty Officer, 2nd Class Hospital Corpsman, United States Navy. Currently registered nurse at St. Gabriel Medical Center. The red light did not blink, the room did not gasp. A few pens scratched across paper. They asked about her service record first, where she trained, how she came to be attached to combat units. When she first heard the words Field Stabilization Protocol, she answered in full sentences without decoration. Sand, heat, nights when helicopters did not stop coming, kits that changed weight between one patrol and the next. They asked about Lifeline without using the name at first, skirting around it as if the label itself had teeth. Was there a time when your directives regarding patient care shifted? One of them asked. Yes, she said, when the focus stopped being a getting them home and started being getting them talking. They asked about the first time someone did not make it. She described the detonation that had thrown her and Daniel into the same air, the feeling of his vest under her hands, the way his voice had fought past blood and dust. You remember his exact words? The chair asked. Get out, she said. Stay out, promise. It was the only time she let her voice catch. They moved to last week. The ER, the flatline, the off-protocol choices, the mark on Ethan's shoulder, the warehouse. She did not dramatize. She did not minimize. She told them about oxygen and electricity and a man who had once taught her to count bodies like tallies on a board. When she finished, someone on the panel sat back and let out a slow breath as if he had been holding it for the length of her account. You are aware that by admitting to altering prescribed treatment, you are opening yourself to possible disciplinary action, one of the lawyers said. Yes, she said. Why do it, he asked. Because he was dying, she said. Silence settled in the room for a long heartbeat. The court reporter's keys clicked quietly. They brought Ethan in after her. He walked with a stiffness that said his wounds were still a fresh negotiation. His sling was gone, but the scars under his shirt pulled when he moved. He took the same seat, the same glass of water, the same microphone. Lieutenant Ward, the chair began. Ethan is fine, he said. They asked him about the ambush, the safe apartment, the shots fired. He answered with the blunt economy of someone who had told versions of this story before. When they circled toward Claire, he glanced over his shoulder, once found her in the second row. The nurse who treated you that night, a member of the panel, said, "Do you believe her actions were appropriate?" He considered the question, jaw tight. "I have been on tables in a lot of rooms," he said. "Makeshift tents back of transports, clean surgical bays. Sometimes the person above you has a manual they stick to. Sometimes they just have whatever they can carry in a bag, and a prayer you will hold together." "That is not an answer," the lawyer said. "It is the only answer," Ethan said. "I woke up. That is why I'm sitting in this chair instead of lying under a piece of marble with my name on it. You can write whatever you want under appropriate." One of the older men at the end of the row looked down at his papers for a long moment, then closed them. The drive opened doors. Not every door. Some remained locked or opened onto rooms that had been scrubbed clean. But enough. Contract numbers. Vendor lists. Emails that spoke in euphemisms but pointed unmistakably to a network that had taken a program born in a war zone and stretched it across borders, chasing money, influence, leverage. Investigations spun up. A handful of contracts were suspended. A few faces disappeared from organizational charts. For a while, the words field stabilization appeared in more headlines than Claire's name. Then other stories crowded in. Other crises. The world's attention shifted. The committees moved on to the next stack of folders. In Marcus's office, a thin binder sat on his shelf marked Lifeline in black pen. It was not closed, but it was not at the top of his pile. He stood at the window one afternoon and watched a medevac helicopter cut across the far skyline, small against the clouds. The sound reached him a few seconds later, muffled by glass. Rivera knocked on the doorframe. "Paper came through," she said. "They are reassigning oversight of emergency asset programs. Some of your notes made it into the policy draft." "Some," he said. "It is a start," she said. He nodded, but his eyes stayed on the helicopter until it vanished. St. Gabriel carried on. The ER doors kept sliding open. Nurses kept tying their hair back and gloving up. Time kept folding itself into shifts, daylight and night monitors beeping with lives that did not know they were one sharp turn from stopping. One morning, the south hallway of the emergency wing gathered a small crowd. The facilities team had mounted a new frame on the wall between two trauma bay doors. It held the sleeve of an old Marine field blouse, the faded patch still sewn near the shoulder. Next to it on a small hook hung a simple gold ring polished until it caught every bit of light in the corridor. Below them, printed on a card in plain dark type, were the words, "For the ones who choose a pulse before a procedure." No one gave a speech. A few nurses paused on their way past, reading the card in silence. One of the techs reached up and touched the glass with 2 fingers, a small tap that made no sound. Dr. Collins stood back and watched. "Looks good there," he said. "Better than in a drawer," the facilities manager replied. That evening, Claire signed a stack of forms in a small office near Human Resources. The fluorescent light buzzed. The woman behind the desk pushed each page across and collected it when she was done. "Reinstatement approved," the woman said. "Full privileges in the emergency department. Welcome back, Ms. Holt." The name hung in the air for a second, new and familiar all at once. Claire tucked her copy of the paperwork into her bag. Outside the window, the sky over the city was turning that deep blue that belonged to the hour when day either gave up or changed shape. On her way down to the ER, she passed the new frame in the hallway. She stopped. The sleeve did not look like much, just fabric and thread and the ghost of years spent in weather this building would never see. The ring glinted softly. She lifted her hand and placed her fingers lightly against the glass below the words. "Hey," she said under her breath, "they put you where you can watch." Her palm warmed the glass. She let it rest there a moment, then dropped her hand and kept walking. The nurses' station hummed with a low, steady energy. Screens lit up faces. Phones rang and were answered. Charts updated in a fast, practiced shorthand. Ethan leaned against the corner of the desk, a reusable coffee cup in his hand. His posture was looser, his color better. The triangle of scars under his shirt would never quite fade, but they pulled less now. "You really came back," he said when he saw her. She raised her badge so he could see the name. "Seems so," she said. He lifted his cup in a small salute. "Thought you might take a teaching job," he said. "Something with less sprinting and more lecturing." "I thought about it," she said. "Then I remembered what I am good at." He nodded as if that answer made sense. "I will try not to bleed on your floor again," he said. Do that, she replied. We are short on mops. A crackle came over the intercom. The charge nurse picked up a phone, listened, then looked up. Multi-vehicle collision, she called. 3 minutes out, 2 critical, 1 walking wounded. Chairs scraped, pens were dropped. People moved with the smooth urgency of a team that had done this enough times to know who went where without asking. Claire pulled on a fresh pair of gloves. The snap of latex around her wrists sounded like the beginning of a familiar piece of music. Her place was at bay, too. She checked the crash cart, the suction, the oxygen line. Her hands moved over each item, once a quick inventory. Her fingers brushed the dog tag under her scrub top, the cool oval of metal warming against her skin. She did not close her eyes. She did not have to. I am here, she said quietly to no one in particular, and to one person who would always hear it. Siren wails grew louder, then dropped as the ambulances rolled to a stop outside. Doors opened. Voices rose. Wheels rumbled at speed. The automatic doors flew back. Gurneys flooded in, bringing rain, damp air, and the sharp smell of the street. Claire stepped forward, catching the end of one gurney as it turned, helping guide it into the light. On 3, she said. 1, 2, 3. They lifted together. The monitors beeped, the room filled with movement and sound. Claire's hands found their work. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.